Welcome to the Third Degree Masonic Podcast, where we are always on the level. Welcome to the show, listeners. I would just like to say thank you for sharing all of our posts and just going with us on this amazing journey to learn the stories of Masons all across our district and hopefully in the future across our state and country. Today, we are coming to you from Wood County Lodge in Bowling Green, Ohio. And today I have another special guest, a very prominent Mason in Northwest Ohio, and a very influential man for Bowling Green Masonic, or Wood County Masonic Lodge. I would like to proudly introduce our brother, Rick Crow. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Getting ready to do an inter-apprentice degree tonight.
It's going to be a fun meeting, so I think we should just get right into the questions and we'll get right on with it so that way we can get on to this fun degree work. So how long have you been a Mason?
I joined back in 1983, so 40 years now.
Wow, that's quite a lot of time. Have you, you've obviously seen the fraternity for quite a big chunk of time, way more than me or Ryan. Have you seen a lot of changes?
Oh yeah, very much so. What type of changes are you? I mean, from Grand Lodge perspective, yeah, there have been changes. They're less strict in some areas. As far as the lodge atmosphere is concerned, when I joined, as we were discussing before, everybody wore a suit. We did not come to lodge unless we were properly attired. So in that regard, the lodges themselves are a lot more formal and strict. But yeah, there have been changes over the years. From the recognition of Prince Hall Masonry and stuff like that, which they didn't recognize until I think 2002 or somewhere in that area.
So do you think that as these times and these changes have had where we've casually dropped some of our attire and some of our formalness, do you think it's made an effect on the fraternity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for the formality of the way it used to be. I think that if you're, right now I have a tuxedo on because we're going to be doing degree work. Most lodges either wear tuxedos for degree work or a suit. Back when everybody was required or expected to wear a suit, I think that maybe there was more of a seriousness that you don't find as much today as we did back then, as far as taking your role in lodge seriously.
So do you think if maybe we went back to those stringent standards, do you think maybe that seriousness would come back?
That's possible. It's difficult to do. Once you step through a door, going back the opposite direction's a little more difficult. People are used to coming to lodge, maybe business casual, which is generally what we have here. There's something to be said for that too, because a lot of people are coming from work, and the work atmosphere changed around the same time as the atmosphere in lodge did, where you used to wear a suit and tie to work. Now it's what's called business casual. So that's kind of the direction we've gone in.
And as times move forward, they change. Maybe going forward, they'll change back.
It's possible.
It's possible.
There are lodges, there are districts that are a lot more formal than we are. So,
of course. So we're currently here at Wood County Lodge. Is this your home lodge?
It is not.
What is your home lodge?
Gibsonburg.
Okay.
When I got married back in 1980, my father-in-law was a member of Gibsonburg Lodge. I had no idea what Masonry was. All I knew at the time was that he was going somewhere twice a month. A gentleman was out to pick him up, and they'd go. I asked my wife about it. Oh, he's going to the Masons. I said, "What's that?" I said, "I don't know. You'll have to ask him." That was my first mistake. Because I did, and he basically put a petition in my hand and said, "Fill this out. I'll pay for your initiation, and then you can find out what Masonry is all about." That's how I joined.
And obviously you're still here after 40 years.
Yeah, it was a lot different back then. Most were under the, I mean, you don't approach anybody, or back then you didn't approach anybody. Now it's, again, and this is a good thing, where we are more free to talk about Masonry in public, as opposed to what they thought back 40 years ago. You can tell a gentleman's like, I think you make a good Mason. Can't flat out ask him to join, but you can suggest that he could join if he wanted to, which was taboo back
Right.
then. So,
Well, based off of what we have talked with some of our other guests, it was, I mean, flat out, you had to ask to join. You were not.
yes. And I honestly, I don't remember actually asking to join. I asked about it, and he basically said, "Okay, you're joining."
So
that was the door opening for him. So
nothing wrong with that.
And neither one of his two sons joined. So it was it became a real special relationship between him and myself. So
Just a good bond.
mm-hmm.
So when you joined, what do you remember most about when you joined the fraternity? Obviously, we can't talk about degree work and we can't talk about the ritual, but were there any feelings that you were feeling or any thoughts that you were having when you first joined?
Yeah. Again, I went in without a lot of knowledge what Masonry was about. I know now that in my hometown, which is about the same size as Gibsonburg, that they did have a Masonic lodge.
Mm.
And I found out afterward that my grandfather was a Mason that I didn't know about, because they just didn't talk about stuff like that.
Sure.
So, but as far as what I remember most is being kind of awestruck and lost. There's so much information that's thrown at you in the entered apprentice degree, and it's just one night, and then of course you work with your mentor to learn the proficiency, but learning the proficiency and understanding the proficiency are two different things.
Of course.
I still tell people that I give all 3 lectures, but I still learn some new things about the lecture that the meaning didn't quite strike me when I was learning it, and it's like, that's what that means, and stuff like that.
It takes some time to really chew on it and think,
And that's after 40 years. I can't say that I've learned anything new from the lectures in about 10 years, but 30 years of giving the lecture and realizing what the meaning truly was is, there's a lot of esoteric stuff in those lectures.
Absolutely. So as we keep saying, you've been a Mason for quite some time, almost 40 years at least, right?
Yes.
What do you love about this fraternity? What is it that keeps you coming back?
The brotherhood. People talk about brothers and, without really knowing what they're saying, that aren't a part of Masonry. Here it's true. It's real. When somebody comes up to you and they see your ring and say, "Oh, I see you've traveled some," we're everywhere, and people don't even realize it.
Absolutely.
So, but and you always have a friend, no matter what town you go into. Coming up tonight, there's a lady that came out of a place that's part of this building, asking about finding out that the Masonic Lodge was there and that her brother was a Mason, and could he come up to lodge when he's in town. I think he's out in Kansas or something like that. I said, sure. And but no matter where you go, you can find a lodge to attend.
Kind of like finding a little piece of home anywhere you go.
Yep.
So do you have a Masonic hero or idol that you look up to? Could be someone from the past, could be somebody, when you were first joining.
Probably my father-in-law. He was not a ritualist. I became one, but he knew so much, and did his best to live the Masonic life. And he would be probably my number one hero. He's been gone since '93, I believe, but he's still in my heart. And I think the other one would from Gibsonburg Lodge would be a gentleman named Don Lead, and he was the, for lack of a better term, taskmaster of Gibsonburg. He knew the ritual inside and out and made sure that we were doing it right. And too many lodges they don't have somebody like that to make sure that the ritual is being done right. And you lose some things when you don't have a man like that.
You have to have somebody that knows it so well and make sure that as we're doing it going forward, it's still to the same quality almost.
Yes. So,
and it's unfortunate that we're losing those guys faster than we can train new people to learn under them. It's quite unfortunate. We're kind of in that spot at our home lodge. We're lucky we still have a few of them left that really know what they're doing, and they're kind of taking us under their wing and teaching us. But some places aren't so lucky.
Right. The gentleman that was just here listening earlier, he's the worshipful master over at Gibsonburg right now. I've been working with him and a bunch of the brothers there trying, because for the longest time I was the only one that gave a lecture. I know all. That's the problem when you learn all three lectures. I think some of the other members maybe rely on that too much, and I don't want to use the word lazy, but they don't want to take time to learn it because we already have somebody that knows it. Well, he's taken it upon himself. He learned the G portion of the Fellowcraft second section for our inspection, and did a very good job. He knows a couple of the charges and stuff like that. So he's starting to learn, and I'm trying to replace myself because I'm not getting any younger.
You have to.
I'll be 65 in June, and so.
Well, you'll still be with us for a long time.
We hope.
It would be nice if somebody would, take the weight off your back a little bit.
Yes.
What is your proudest moment as a Mason?
Pride and Masonry don't really go hand in hand. If you're proud, I'm proud to be a Mason, but being proud of something that you accomplish in Masonry, to me, pride comes before the fall.
Sure.
And, I try not to trumpet, the things that I've done or whatever. Maybe the first lecture I gave, I was fairly proud of myself, but I try to live by the tenets of Masonry, and pride isn't one of those tenets.
Sure.
So, I've been a district deputy. That was fun. I was honored to be asked, but I just don't believe in trumpeting my own accomplishments.
You don't need someone to scream your accolades. You know deep down what you did, and
Right.
And you did what was expected.
Yep.
And really, we all should be kind of like that in a way. We should all be kind of doing the work because it needs to be done, not because we're expecting a pat on the back or someone to, talk about us for 45 minutes.
True.
That's really cool. You're the first person I've had that's kind of had that kind of response, and I really respect that. That is thought-provoking.
Yeah.
As we keep going, I'd like to flip to another question, and not to be negative in any kind of way. Is there anything, if you could change one thing about our fraternity, the way we do things, maybe the way that we incorporate some things, is there anything you can think of that you might wish to change back to? It could even be like you were talking about earlier with the attire.
That's a tough question.
It is.
I don't know that, the changes that have come over the years since I've been a Mason were needed. When you consider alcohol being allowed in the lodge buildings, not in the lodge room, but in the lodge buildings, that was, I think, a necessary change, especially for some of the larger buildings that have banquet halls. when they were so strict back then that they wouldn't, sure, we can host your wedding reception here, but you can't have alcohol.
Right.
That was difficult for those buildings and those, for the owners of those buildings to keep them open because, well, we lost that banquet because we couldn't do this.
Right.
So, some of those changes were very good. And I think in general, the lodge, the Grand Lodge of Ohio, has been moving in the right direction. So would I go back and change things? No. And I don't know of anything right now that I would want to change. So I guess no.
So things are going in the right direction.
I think so, yeah.
Good. Good.
You need to be a little bit more progressive in this day and age, and I think the Grand Lodge has done that. So
it certainly has, with a lot of the programs that they've been doing and trying to get us out into the public, open houses, showings, pushing us not just to do more actively with our lodge, but also to get out into our community and show ourselves.
That's a big problem with a lot of the smaller lodges. They've been around for so long, but the communities don't even know they're there.
Right.
So, open up to the community and take an active role in the community in one form or another. So, but
it's fantastic advice. We at Genoa had the same problem. No one knew we existed. We're right across the street from the biggest and most popular restaurant in town. Nobody knew what we were. But by going out to the grocery stores and, doing the Salvation Army and that kind of stuff, people are like, oh, my grandpa was a Mason. I didn't know you guys were still around. Yes, and we are. It's like, you guys are really young to be Masons. And we're like, not really.
I've seen a lot of younger people more interested in Masonry, and I'm not sure what the difference is now as opposed to what it was in the past, because my generation, I'm right on the edge of Gen X and baby boomers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in '59. So technically, it was the last year of the boomers and the beginning of Gen X, and the Gen Xers aren't joiners. Never have been. And me, it's like, well, if my father-in-law says it's a good thing to do, then I'll do it because I respected him so much. But by and large, I can't say that I was a joiner back then. Would I now? Yeah. But right now, we're seeing a lot more interest from young people. If when you go down and we open up lodge night, you're going to see a lot of young officers. Ranging anywhere in age from mid to late 20s into their 30s, mid 30s. So I'm the oldest one, and I'm in the East. So
nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
It's awesome to see such a young line, and I look forward to sitting down and watching them do their work, and it's refreshing.
I think the key for a lot of lodges, and we have too many of them folding right now, is you need to get one young guy interested and work with that, make him feel welcome, and he goes out and tells his friend, and he joins, and it's kind of a domino effect. And we're seeing a similar thing in Gibsonburg. It's a very young line there also. So
I think that would be some fantastic advice for the future. And
you have to get them engaged.
You do. You got to get them on the ground running almost as soon as they join. You can't let them just join and then sit on the wayside.
Right.
You got to start dragging them into the fold. Otherwise, they're going to go, why did I do this?
Yep.
Because you don't learn everything from our ritual work. You kind of learn a lot of the culture of Masonry. The degrees and everything teach you the basics, but it's only by being around it and visiting other lodges and seeing the degree work multiple times, at least in my opinion, that you kind of start to understand what it is that you're a part of now. It's bigger than what you think it is.
That's true. Degree work-wise, always look for something new. It's something that you didn't realize or didn't didn't understand the first time or the second time or the third time. There are lessons all throughout those degrees, but like I said, that's not everything there is about Masonry. You need a friend. You need somebody to befriend a candidate that comes in and said, I'm going to work with you and answer any questions that you have to the best of my ability, and try to get them engaged. So
try to mentor you through the whole process.
Yes. And I'll be the first to say I'm not the best mentor in the world.
I'm not either.
But some people are very, very good at it. Other ones, some will look at me and say, "Hey, you'd make a good mentor." It's like, no, I wouldn't.
No, I just kind of look at people and I go, "Do you have any questions?" No? Okay, cool. I'm the same way. Luckily, we have...
You have to dig the questions out.
You do. And luckily, we have Brother Jim Taylor at our lodge, and he has taken over our entered apprentice candidate and has been mentoring.
Isn't he a member of every lodge in the district?
Feels like it at this point. Certainly, it really does at this point. I didn't realize... I've known Jim since I was 12 years old, and I never realized how many lodges he's actually a part of until a few weeks ago when we did his interview.
Yeah.
As we finish up, because I know we've got a lot of work to do tonight, I just have one last question. What would you like to leave behind for the future of Masonry?
Leave behind.
Maybe a piece of advice for future Masons?
That's a good question. I wish I had an answer off the top of my head.
I know.
My advice to any new Mason is be curious. Find out what it's about, because what you see and what you learn can be two different things. Be curious. Dig it up. Look for information. Don't believe everything you read on the internet or see on the internet, because most of it isn't true. Talk to people who know. So I'm more than willing to sit down and answer questions and whatever for a candidate, or mentor him in that respect. But running him through the proficiency and stuff like that, and the proficiencies are good. They help you remember what you went through, but they don't necessarily help you or explain to you why you went through it. So,
absolutely fantastic advice for the future. Listeners, we would like to thank you for joining us today with Brother Crow on the Third Degree Masonic Podcast. If you can find it within your heart to like and subscribe and share our videos with any of your Masonic brethren. And remember, if you are not a Mason and you would like to be one, ask one.
Remember, craftsmen, keep your working tools in order and always be on the level.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect those of the Grand Lodge of Ohio, its officers, or any of its jurisdictions. They only reflect those of the hosts or guests.